Hey guys, it's your buddy Moo Juice Magic here. Why do I sound like crap and am I still wearing the same blanket I was wearing over my shoulders while I sit in the studio? It's because I still feel like crap and I'm sitting with the same blanket over my shoulders that I did in the last video. Because I feel like garbage. How bad do you feel, Moo? Well, I will tell you. I feel about as bad as if you were dating someone for 3 years in a deep relationship, committed relationship with the most wonderful girl in the world, and you find out one day you can't backdoor her anymore because she's your sister, and also you've gotten her pregnant 3 times, and then you also backdoored your sister and got her pregnant. That's kind of how I probably feel. I'm going to guess it's kind of similar to how I feel. Maybe not so much, but anyway, you get the gist on how crappy I feel. It's a sinus infection. It sucks. It's part of living where I live in the Pacific Northwest. I got to deal with it. So something big, though, is happening in America in the next few days. Something to bring change and hopefully silence a lot of the haters in the country. Something to unify a lot of people when we finally understand who's who and what's what in this world, in this country. No, I'm not talking about Election Day. That's already been beaten. That horse has been just abused and flogged. I'm moving on from that, and I'm talking about November 15th. Now, what happens November 15th? It's supposed to be an event that a lot of us have just been waiting for, making plans around, having to reschedule those plans because it got canceled, and then hearing it's back on now. Well, I mean, we'll see if it ever actually freaking happens. I'm doubtful. Okay, in all my years, I'm pretty doubtful about it. I'm talking, of course, about Tyson versus Paul. It's a boxing match. For those who don't know, Mike Tyson, if you somehow don't, despite his personal life back in the day, he's probably the greatest boxer of all time. He's got a record of 50 wins and like 6 losses over his 50 some odd years. The man is nearing 60 years old. I think he's 58, 59 right now. And is, 50 to 6. That's a pretty good record. Now, we look at Jake Paul, and his tape is a super close record, reading 10-1. 10-1. How do you feel this is going to go, folks, if it goes? Mike Tyson fought and destroyed most of the best boxers ever. And when he would get into the ring, you knew someone was probably getting knocked out, even if it was going to be him. But you knew it was going to be a serious banger of a fight, and it was going to be good or fucking really fast. You did not want to be the one paying for the $60 pay-per-view for the 2-second fight that you'd often get during his fights. When Jake gets into the ring, he fights MMA fighters and special rules boxing matches. Old guys like Tyson, but not Tyson, which is it's an important distinction, folks. He fights old guys that are like Tyson, but not Tyson. Or he fights other folks that have never boxed a day in their life. He fought some other YouTube content creators. But, anyway, that isn't to take too much away from Jake Paul. He really is a decent boxer. I'm not exaggerating or being sarcastic. He has decent head and hand control. His movement is not terrible for a big guy. You expect to see a lot of guys kind of cumbersome and clunky. Mike Tyson is the opposite. He moves like a lightweight or a featherweight fighter in a heavyweight frame. Now, he's big enough, Jake Paul, to have power, and he's relatively quick to say, like me. He really isn't a terrible boxer, though, jokes aside, and I haven't trained in a very long time. I've been a boxing fan and a martial arts guy my whole life, and I've boxed and I've trained. And I look at things like this with a very important, through a very important lens, because I've moved mostly onto MMA. For me, boxing is, at least, normal boxing is kind of dying. I mean, there's still a ton of money in it, but people aren't leaning that direction as much. They're leaning more towards like MMA in the future of real combat. Not to say that there's anything wrong with boxing. Dude, you get these MMA guys in there and they get demolished in regular boxing rings because now you've taken away 90% of their skill set and paired it up against someone who's a 100% of their skill set is knocking out dudes with just boxing. And big guys too. You don't have as much weight variance in boxing as you do in some of the MMA stuff. So, here's a question. Is Mike Tyson, at nearing 60 years old, still good? That's what it really breaks down to. Not is Jake Paul a good boxer. In Tyson's prime, there's not even a close match. Jake Paul would be gone faster than anyone Mike Tyson's ever fought, and he's fought some knuckleheads for sure. It's just a reality. It's a different thing. It's a different paradigm. Now, neither of these guys are southpaws. They're both orthodox fighters, which the way Mike Tyson fights, it really doesn't matter if you're south or orthodox, because he can switch up. And he does. He fights really close. He gets in close. You'd expect a big guy like that to try to close the distance with his long-ass arms. or to keep the distance with his long ass arms. It's not always the case. He fights close. He would do this great technique where he'd come in and he'd throw an underhand like shot to the gut. When they were falling forward, he'd move directly and transition directly into an uppercut. It was glorious to watch. As bad as the guy's past was, it was just something spectacular to watch Mike Tyson fight. Now, the real thing is this. As this supposed match, because I'm going to say supposed, because I'm not totally convinced it's ever going to go through, it is a sanctioned match. You might ask why it matters, and if you don't know anything about combat sports, it would make sense that you'd ask. It's kind of like this. Compare backyard MMA, that guy winning that, to signing up for the UFC without stepping up his training game. He's not going to get anywhere without sheer luck. Now, Paul may have done that. He does show videos of him training. And if you watch the video comparisons between the two, though, between him and Tyson, even almost 60 years old, training, it's a world of different skill set. It is not even close in how it looks, how streamlined Tyson is, and how amateur hour boxing Paul comes off, and goofy. That doesn't mean bad when I say it like that. It looks clunky and not right. And it reminds me kind of like, and that's not to say it's not functional. What I was about to say is this. It reminds me of Chuck Liddell fighting in the UFC. The way he would fight was so strange. The way he would stand is so odd. The way he'd keep his hands in positioning, his timing, and it was super effective for him to do that because it threw people off their game. So maybe that's what Jake Paul's going for, and maybe that's what's going to be a saving grace. Now, Paul's fought in exhibition matches, which is kind of like almost competing plus almost sparring. It's kind of in between. It's a world of the two. You're not actually supposed to knock each other out and beat each other up. You're usually trying to raise money, mostly for charity, usually. But I guess Jake Paul didn't get the memo about that because he and Conor McGregor got super rich off of one fight that was just atrocious, and it wasn't a good fight, and he just destroyed Conor McGregor. That said, Conor McGregor is much smaller than him. He's also not a fucking boxer. He's an MMA fighter. It's a different game. If you put him in the octagon against Conor McGregor with UFC rules, Jake Paul lasts less than 10 seconds. Like, seriously. Even though he's a great wrestler and he's a lot bigger, I just don't see it panning out that way. And of course, obviously McGregor's lost his steps, so maybe now Jake Paul will be willing to get in the ring with him. So we have a boxer versus a content creator who boxes. Mike Tyson is a fucking machine. He is built to box. He thinks to box. The guy is a fucking professor in the sweet science. And he is the wunderkind. For real. The guy, Iron Mike Tyson, is the dude to be better than if you can. Jake Paul is not that. Even in Jake Paul's, I guess, his prime right now, we'll see. He's still relatively young. And compared to Mike Tyson, he's relatively young. But, time will tell. I mean, even Kimbo Slice made it into the professional MMA situation for a short time before his passing away. He changed. You could see his whole demeanor and attitude changed when he got humbled by having to get in and fight real fighters, not backyard brawlers. It's a different game. While I studied martial arts my whole life and boxed, and I did all sorts of other stuff, and I worked as a bouncer, and I worked as a bodyguard for people. I know how to throw my hands in certain situations. I would not be getting in the ring with these guys unless I spent not just a training camp, but a 3-year training camp. Like the real time in, day to day, and there's no way I would want to do that at my age. It's preposterous. I don't know what Mike Tyson is thinking, because even though he is a better boxer, there's no freaking argument. If Jake Paul manages to knock him out, it's going to be a matter of Tyson's age and something going wrong with Mike Tyson. The last time they had to reschedule, had to do something with his stomach or his kidneys or something. He had something intestinally going on that made him have to not fight. We'll see if that happens again, because again, this is a sanctioned bout. I have a very hard time seeing this actually happening. Let me know, though, what you guys think in the comments below. Who do you have for the fight? Who do you favor? Do you got Tyson or do you got Paul? And why? I want to know why. Get into it, like, as much as you can. And let's not fight with people in the comments, but let's be respectful of each other's opinions, because we're coming from different points of view. I'm just happen to be a big fan of fights in general. And so, especially boxing for me, I mean, that's what I was watching long before MMA. before I first got a hold of that bootleg UFC VHS tape. Yeah, I'm that old. I was very young when that happened. I was watching professional boxing, and Mike Tyson was a staple of that time and era. Let's see if he still has what it takes, if the fight is for real, to put Jake Paul in his place. And do you think that if Jake Paul gets knocked out, he'll change his mind and attitude about things? Personally, I don't think so. Looking back on the guy's overall career as a human being, it's not great. But Mike Tyson's isn't that great either as a human being. It seems in the later years, Mike Tyson has become a much different person than he was. So maybe there's hope for Jake Paul. I don't know if he's changed up much. Again, personally, I don't foresee this fight really happening. I think something else comes up. I would like for it to happen, but I'm also not sure if I want it to happen, if that makes sense. I don't know that Mike Tyson, at almost 60 years old, should be getting into the ring no matter how good he looks. Your body breaks down, things break down, your brain starts to break down. Mike Tyson, for as much damage as he laid out, he took some damage. And he took damage from the best of the best. You know? So keep that in mind too. Jake Paul has not fought the best of the best in boxing. He hasn't even fought middle class, low end in a fair weight class competition in boxing. I believe he fought one of the guys, was it De La Hoya? I think he fought. But he outweighs the guy by like 70 pounds. And he's also like less than half his age. Come on, guys. This is a silliness to this that reeks of exhibition match, which is what no one wants, except for maybe the promoters, which is fucking Jake Paul. And maybe Mike Tyson, I don't know. It's tons of money. Not like Mike Tyson needs the money, even after all his legal problems. He's still fucking rich. He's still got a pet tiger. Still living big and being examples on Joe Rogan and on movies. Showing up, making, visits. Yeah, my brain is starting to fade because of the sinus infection, and I'm incredibly tired. I hope this finds you guys well. I hope that everything's good. Even if you're not American, obviously, I want to know your opinion. I want to know what people think around the world of it. And if you try to give me that shit about Muhammad Ali being the best of all time versus Mike Tyson, you're insane. And I can name a number of reasons. But let's end this video for another time when I'm far more awake. Anyway, guys, I'm Juice Magic. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I could use the help. I'm getting closer to 100 followers. I know, small start. But I appreciate everybody watching, and you guys have a great day. Juice out.